Welcome to our tutorial. Today we're going to talk about convertibles. As a startup, you need money to grow, so most of you need funding. The three most common ways to get funding are the following. You can get a loan, you can sell your shares, or you can issue convertibles. Today's film is about the latter, convertibles. So what is this thing called a convertible? The convertible starts out as a kind of loan to the company, but it's a loan that will be converted into shares in the future. The startup can already use the cash investment and repay only later with shares. Why would you do that? It's very difficult to get the valuation right for startups in the early stages, and it could potentially be damaging if you get the valuation wrong. With the convertible, the valuation is postponed to a later date, when we have more information so that a sensible valuation can be established. The idea is that an investor will get his shares as soon as something happens that shows the world that a valuation can be reasonably estimated. This moment is called a qualifying event. As soon as there is a qualifying event, the convertible will be transformed into shares. That could be in less than a year, but it could also be several years from now. Because you have delayed the valuation, it's likely much easier to put a value on the company. You will have more validation, traction, and track record. The most important qualifying event is just a future investment in shares. If there are investors wanting to buy startup shares for a specific price, then that's clear evidence that they now think it's possible to value the shares accurately. Of course, not every investment in shares counts as a qualifying event. If the founders give some team members shares in return for investing their time and effort into the company, that shouldn't be a qualifying event, even though there is some kind of investment there. Normally, a convertible contract makes it clear what kind of share investment round counts as a qualifying event. The convertible contracts will specify that the share investment round has to be in cash, ruling out any in-kind contribution or a barter deal. It has to be for newly issued shares, ruling out a buyout of an existing shareholder. It has to be a large round, so for example, at least 100,000 euros in total, or at least 500,000 euros in total, ruling out a very small investment by friends and family, for example. If there is such a qualifying event, the convertible loan will be repaid with shares on the basis of the valuation in the qualifying event. That's called a conversion. So when we implement a conversion, how do we determine exactly how many shares the convertible investor gets? Let's say an investor has invested 200,000 euros in a startup using a convertible, and during the qualifying event a few years later, the price per share turns out to be 10 euros. How many shares does the convertible investor get? To calculate that, we need to discuss three things about a convertible. 1. Interest. 2. Discount. 3. Cap. The interest of a convertible is basically the same as the interest on a loan. The value of the convertible goes up over time with the percentage interest. So at the qualifying event, the total amount has grown. The interest is there to reward the investor if he has to wait a long time for the qualifying event. It's converted into shares along with the rest of the convertible. In our example, let's set the interest to 5%, non-cumulative per year. That means that if the convertible runs for 3 years until the qualifying event, the convertible has increased in size from 200,000 euros to 200,000 euros plus 3 times 5%, equaling 230,000 euros. Let's talk about the discount. Of course, the investor wants to get compensated for the risk he has taken by investing early in the startup. Whatever the value the shares will be at the qualifying event, your initial investor wants his shares to be cheaper because he invested earlier than the qualifying event. The price advantage for the convertible investors is called a discount. In our example, let's set the discount for the convertible at 20%. We suppose that the share price at the qualifying event is determined to be 10 euros per share. With a 20% discount, the investor in your convertible will be able to get the shares for a value of 8 euros instead of 10 euros, so he will be making an instant profit of 2 euros per share. Let's look at how the discount and interest combine during conversion. If the conversion happens after 3 years, then the convertible has grown to 230,000 euros. This is converted into shares at the same price from the qualifying event, which was 10 euros, but we apply a discount of 20%, which takes us to 8 euros per share. 230,000 euros divided by 8 euros is 28,750. That's how many shares the convertible holder gets. Now, we said the shares are actually worth 10 euros, so the 28,750 shares are actually worth 287,500 euros. So the investor has gone from a 200,000 euro cash investment to 287,500 euros in shares value. That's the profit they get for investing early and holding a convertible for 3 years. Okay, now we go on to the cap. The cap can be a bit confusing at times. It usually continues to be confusing every time you work with convertibles. We talked about the fact that at a certain moment in time the convertible turns into shares, right? The qualifying event. At that moment, your company has a valuation. Now there is something called a cap. A cap is a maximum valuation that will be used for the conversion of a convertible. Investors in a convertible often like to know roughly what share valuation they should expect during the conversion. Of course, it is difficult to say this in advance, that's why the convertible exists. But the cap is kind of a guarantee. This is a maximum valuation against which the convertible will convert. Now, whatever the company's share valuation at the qualifying event turns out to be, the convertible investors get the shares at a discount. But that doesn't guarantee any maximum share price. If the shares have gone up like a rocket, the investors will still pay a high price despite the discount. The cap puts a limit on that. To understand this, let's go back to our example. Let's say the cap on the convertible investment in our startup is set at 2.5 million euros for the pre-money valuation of the whole company. Let's say again that the startup is valued in the qualifying event at 10 euros per share, and there are 500,000 shares in existence just before the qualifying event. That means the whole company is worth 5 million euros pre-money. After applying the 20% discount, we saw that the convertible investor will get the shares for 8 euros per share instead of 10 euros. That means that just for the convertible investor, the valuation would be effectively 20% less, so 4 million euros pre-money. But now the convertible investor also has a cap of 2.5 million euros. The cap was a guarantee that a convertible investor would never have to convert at a pre-money valuation higher than 2.5 million euros. And that means that the convertible investor gets an even better deal. For the convertible investor, the conversion share price will be 2.5 million euros divided by 500,000 shares, or 5 euros per share. That means that after interest, the convertible investor will get 230,000 euros divided by 5 euros, or 46,000 shares. Those shares are actually worth 10 euros each, so the total share value is 460,000 euros from an investment of 200,000 euros. Without the cap, that same investor got 28,750 on the basis of the discount. Of course, without the discount and with interest only, it would be only 23,000. So the cap gives a massive advantage for the convertible investors, but only if the value of the company has gone up by so much that the cap is passed. Of course, the startup founders also want the share price to go up quickly, so actually, everyone is happy. That concludes our discussion about the interest, discount, and cap of a convertible. We hope you enjoyed it. If we went too fast, please watch the video again. We have plenty of other videos and offer online interactive training sessions.